Mr. President, I rise today to honor the life and legacy of a dear friend, someone that I admire, and someone that the whole world cheered on, Dr. Sally Ride. Dr. Ride was the first American woman in space. And when she went out there, she blazed a trail out into the stars for women in science and in women in technology, inspiring not only American girls, but girls around the world. Last night, we got the very sad news that Dr. Ride passed away after a brave fight against pancreatic cancer. And I wanted to come to the floor to speak about her. We all know the biography. Dr. Ride became an astronaut after answering an ad in her college newspaper. She had earned a PhD in physics from Stanford. She also earned a graduate degree in Shakespeare. She joined the first group of women in the astronaut corps and trained to be a mission specialist. Mr. President, I know Sally Ride both professionally and personally. I've had the great honor in my years in the Senate to be on the committee that funds the American space program. I have important space assets in my own state of Maryland, the great Goddard Space Agency and Wallops Island, where we hope to do some new launches there later this summer. But for me, my journey into space began, my love for space, not only when John Glenn went into space, but also, and when we walked on the moon. But I will never forget that day that Sally Ride in 1983 boarded that shuttle, strapped herself in, put on her helmet, and when the rockets roared and out she went, the whole world had signs, cheers, saying, "Go, Sally, go, Sally." Wow, I'll never forget it. I was in the House of Representatives. I was down there. We were waiting. We were exciting. There was nothing like it. And Mr. President, if you haven't seen a shuttle launch, it's the most amazing thing. The ground shakes. You feel it. You feel it in your body. You feel it in your heart. And then as that rocket took up, we cheered her on. It was an enormously patriotic moment. Once again, our shuttle flew high into the sky. It was the Challenger, and later on, it would have its own rendezvous with destiny. I was so proud of Dr. Ride, but I was proud of my country. I was proud of its vision, of its innovation, and I was proud of the fact that we live in a country where women can follow their dreams, to take the talents that God has given them to be able to pursue that. And when I saw Dr. Ride go into space, another barrier was broken for women. Even though Sally was the first, she didn't want to be the only. When she launched into space, yes, she broke a barrier. Yes, she took hopes and dreams of many girls, but she wanted more to come. She has the characteristic of many of us who are the first. She said she didn't want to be, though she was the first American woman, she didn't want to be the only American woman. She devoted her career to encouraging young women to go into science and to also come into the space program. Now, more than 50 women have gone into space. Nobody, and it's been an astounding accomplishment. The other thing that Dr. Ride Dr. Ride and I talked about what it's like to be the first. When I was elected to the Senate, I became the first Democratic woman elected to the Senate in her own right. Among the first 10 phone calls that I got was from Sally Ride, congratulating me and said, "Hey, you broke a barrier and you're going to go into new space. It's called Senate space." And after we joked and laughed and so on, we said, gee, we firsties ought to have a club that should meet on the first Monday of the first month of the first of the year. We had Sandra Day O'Connor. There was Sally Ride. President George Bush was to go on to appoint Bernadine Healy as the first woman to head of NIH. And as we talked about it, she said, you know, we who are the first can't be the only. The other characteristic was of the we the first was where she said, and we would agree, that you don't get to be a me without a whole lot of we. She was a firm believer in public schools, public education, public libraries, those opportunities that enable you to go to school, that enable you to get a PhD at Stanford, that enables you to get out there and compete, to be an astronaut. That when we think about ourselves, we think about our families, we think about our teachers, we think about our coaches. We are so indebted to them, and she was too. She was so indebted that that's the way she wanted to devote her life. Sally Ride knew she was famous, but she had no desire to get rich. She did not capitalize on her big name, her big iconic international brand. She wanted to use her name, her reputation, the Sally Ride brand, to be inspirational and motivational. She did not seek profit. She sought to inspire others. After retiring from NASA, she dedicated her entire life to encouraging young women to study science, math, and technology. For that which she found love, she wanted to do it. She continued to do that all the way up to the last months of her life. And she worked on that, and I recall in 2008, I invited her to Baltimore to celebrate the 25th anniversary of her going into space. We had this great afternoon. After a wonderful lunch and crab cakes and talking things over, we went to the Maryland Science Center. And there were these girls, Girl Scouts, working on badges about science and technology. And there was this great globe that showed the planet Earth, and she talked about what it's like to study the planet. She talked about what it was to go into space. And what she said is that when you look back at space, while you are busy looking out there, you see this great planet, and you want to do all you can to help it and save it. Those young girls were mesmerized. Well, wow, that was 4 years ago. Many of them have now finished their Girl Scout badges. Many have finished middle school and are in high school, but hopefully they're not finished their great interest in science. That's what her work was. And she also had a great impact on the space program itself. She worked with both NASA, and then when Al Gore was here as a senator, he was on the authorizing committee, and I, of course, the appropriator. She worked with NASA and us on a new strategic vision for NASA. And then what did she say about what we should study? Planets, galaxies, asteroids, you name it. Rings around Saturn, yes. But you know what else she said? Let's study this planet where we suspect there's intelligent life. She had a great sense of humor. And Al Gore and I leaned forward on our chairs and said, and what would that be? What did Sally know that had been dreamt about for ages, intelligent life? She said, yes, it's called Planet Earth. Let's see if we can find it. Dr. Ride, after we had our laughs that day, suggested that we study our own planet as if it were a distant star, so that we would get to know it. We would know its climate. We would know its weather. And also we would take the time to know its people, and that we would do it to save the planet and save the people who are on the planet. I regret that our own science is not yet advanced to have saved Dr. Ride. She died of pancreatic cancer. I know the gifted and talented people at NIH and those who benefit from the funding of NIH are working all over this great country to find cures for that dreaded C word. Pancreatic cancer is deadly, and it's fast, and it's painful. She died steadfast, true to herself and true to her mission. I just think that the entire world owes a debt of gratitude to her. And the way we can honor her memory is to encourage those to search for the stars, But let's search here for the problems that hurt our own people. Let's find that cure for pancreatic cancer. And let's continue to be a great country that innovates and also educates and believe in educating its women and its girls in the same way. So God bless Sally Ride, and God bless America, the kind of country that made Dr. Ride's life possible. Thank you very much. I yield the floor.